get to too many personal details that might bore you. I do like to get past the intro and get into the topic. So I'm going to say something about myself. I'm a Muslim. He does happiness classes. This is a happiness class where I talk about all sorts of issues that massively affect your happiness. And I talk, my ideas are based on Islam, but you don't have to be Muslim to follow them. This is for everybody to benefit from as much as you want. You can question it. In fact, when I do my live streams, I try to find people who probably disagree. So that's my intro, and that's my channel up there, Khalid Safiu. You're already on my channel. I don't have to say that. And I want to say something about Claire. I think I sometimes I just get used to the ideas of Claire, and I forget how forward-thinking they are. Or revolutionary, which is quite frankly realize. I would say many Muslims don't appreciate Islam like Claire does, even though she's not Muslim. What do I mean by that? She recognizes Islam's the future. It's going to be taking over the West in a matter of time, and or maybe that's what she says. I think so. And
yes, I am saying that.
Cool. And also, it's the most practical religion that solves a million problems. But the thing is, Muslims, I find, don't really care about that. They seem to just care only to the extent they get stuck in these boring theological discussions like, will there be another prophet after Prophet Muhammad? Like, in terms of the big picture, what difference does it make, right? But I do those discussions and I get more interest in those discussions, but very low intelligence kind of discussions where how can you just be interested in theological discussions and not be in, like, how can you be interested in the, let's say, the frame of Islam or what it looks like, you know, the tiny details, but not be interested in how it's useful? So what Claire does is she's interested in how it's useful and not overly worried about tiny details like, I don't know, is there another Khalifa? Is there, you know, how long is heaven and hell and all these kind of things? They're kind of important, but how can you not care about, this is what I find, Muslims don't care about how does Islam help your mental health? How does it solve economic problems? How does it solve relationships? I don't hear about that. Anyway, Claire, what would you want to say about yourself? Do you agree with anything I've said about, is that what your experiences of other Muslims? Do you agree with any of the stuff I just said about you?
Well, yes, because I suppose what you just listed about, you know, how high is heaven and how low is hell, we will never know, so there's no point discussing it. But in the meantime, there are lots of things to discuss in the Quran itself, and being legally trained, I am interested in the ins and outs of the rules, and so this week I've been, you know, making the point that prostitution and slavery has not been forbidden in either the Bible or the Quran, and this just freaks so many people out, and they call me all kinds of names. But then they get angry with me because they can't deny that it hasn't been forbidden. So if you like to play around with rules in a lawyerly way, then the Quran is the book for you.
I have my doubts that prostitution is not forbidden because but I think there's a bit about, are you talking about like you're allowed to have sex with the people who your right hand possesses? Is that where you're getting the ideas from?
Yes, chapter 24, verse 33, there is this verse that says, do not force your slave girls who desire to remain chaste into prostitution. And I thought, all right, you know, but if they're willingly going to do it, then it's all right. And if you're a free woman and you want to be a prostitute, and you're supposed to have more rights than
is that how lawyers think? Oh my God.
Yes, yes. We're okay. Terrible like that.
But we should. We will. Before we get into, I think, as I was saying to Claire just a second before we started, even though these ideas might be out there or annoying for some people, you're not just talking about this for no reason. You see there are major problems, like people are just not having sex. How do you solve that problem? Better solution is they get married, but you have you have worries about the transition period by which people get back into marriage and stuff like that. So I can appreciate that. The slavery thing is really interesting as well. I think you how do I put it? You're not good at selling your ideas. I would say you make it the most uncomfortable possible way. Like slavery, the way if I understand it, you're saying we should offer people sort of jobs in a way, which you can call slavery, where they live with the boss, and the boss takes care of all the needs and treats them well. But you call that slavery, which is kind of the kind of slavery we've had in early days of Islam. Is that what you're talking about?
My proposal for slavery is basically that the state owns the property of the slave, and it creates an account for the slave. So I'm thinking of the Department of Works, Pensions and Manumissions. So the slave has an account, and the state hires out the slave to hire a slave who will actually be paying the government, and what it pays the government will go towards the manumission of the slave, because every slave is
manumission?
entitled to manumission. Manumission is basically the slave buying his freedom back.
Oh yes, okay, yeah. Which is Islamic idea, yeah. So it's only the state that can do that. Okay, so we won't talk about that too much, but but there are definitely very interesting ideas, very useful ideas as well. All right, let's get on with it. So today I wanna let's share my screen. Present. Let's go. I thought this time what I'm going to go for is a sort of PowerPoint presentation style. Let's just see how it goes. So not that I'll necessarily stick to it, but Windows, that, and yeah, cool. So before, I was thinking this picture says something. This is the thumbnail, and then Claire said she liked the thumbnail, and I thought, okay, yeah, I'm going to go with this. Okay, so I've been studying psychology for a pretty long time out of personal interest, especially since I was 16. And the reason I mention that is I think most people don't realize, how do I put it, how dumb we are, like how easily controlled we are, how simple our needs are. And so when I say you want power, everybody goes, no, I don't want power. And I'm different to Hitler. And, Hitler didn't just want to be loved. And he didn't kill all those people just because he wants to be loved and things like that. And there's a lot of evidence, if you study psychology, that actually we're just like Hitler. We're just like all the people who, all the evidence says we would do the Holocaust ourselves. We would kill the Jews ourselves, not because we hate Jews, just because we follow orders more than we realize. We overestimate ourselves, and so what I'm trying to do in this video is not just to insult everybody watching. I insult myself as well. I realize how stupid I am. And then because of that, I don't make it complicated when I realize my faults, and then I fix them more easily. When you think you're really clever, you try hard to defend yourself rather than fix yourself. And what is it that I want to fix? People make their lives incredibly hard. Okay. And you might say, no, we don't make ourselves incredibly hard. Life is hard. We have to buy all this stuff and then we'll be happy. But actually, nobody really ever dies of hunger. This is a quote I got from a really nice Jordanian. I've been doing started doing interviews, and there's a lot of truth in it. I've been doing interviews and I just turn up to people sitting out around, and they're very friendly, and I say, let's talk about happiness. What's the secret? And it's very true that we're probably not going to die out of hunger. It's something else that pushes us, and I'm going to dig down into that. And because these happiness classes are based on Islam, I always start with verses of the Quran or similar things like that, or sayings of Prophet Muhammad, or even the definition of Islam is what I'm going to talk about. So, Hitler wanted love, right? And that got, and first of all, to say we're different is wrong. Let me prove that. Let me start off with like a basic introduction to psychology to explain how silly we are. It's very important to understand how silly we are. So there's a famous experiment called Milgram's experiment. Have you ever heard of it? The one where people are told to electrocute some stranger to death, and they go with it very easily just because the other person's wearing a lab coat.
Yes, they obey authority, and they think because the man in the lab coat says it's okay, it doesn't matter if the person is screaming horribly, because
Exactly.
it's okay.
And
They
it's
have
go on.
yes,
Sorry.
legal authority. Yes.
Yeah, legal authority, some sort of weird, and they're not even told that they have legal authority. They just see a person with a white lab coat, and that's enough. And people like to think that they're different. So the point of this experiment, which has been proved so many times that it's kind of accepted, this is how people work, how people operate, that most people will kill a total stranger just because somebody in a lab coat said so, and they didn't even say it forcefully, no threat, just please press the button. And so, I mean, just to go into the experiment a little bit, it starts off with there's an actor on the other side. You don't see the other person dying. It's not anybody actually being killed. And you just hear sounds, and there's a whole set of switches. You start from the least. So you ask a question. If the person answers it wrong, which they purposely answer wrong, the other person's an actor, then you flick a switch on the order of this person with the lab coat, and it gives a little bit of electrocution. And on top of each switch is how deadly that electrocution is. Until it gets all the way down to the scale, and then it says this switch will kill the person, and the person goes quiet, and most people go with it. The only people who do not continue all the way to the end are people with really strong moral values who are unusual and don't think you're one of those strong values people, strongly principled people. It's very unlikely that unless you see in your daily life that you're in a habit of doing things that nobody else does, right? For the truth, like you have to be highly exceptional, and I don't know many highly exceptional people. Other than people who come to Speaker's Corner and things like that, those people stand up for what they think. But most people I know are too timid or shy to really stand up for anything. So you're not different, okay? And then power is a means to love. So what do you think about the first thing about you're not different to Hitler or the people who committed the Holocaust or anything like that? What do you think about that, Claire?
Well, it gave me a few uncomfortable moments, because you're basically saying, okay, Hitler was a politician that came to a sticky end, but then there are lots of political activists, now and before and in the future, who will think that they're doing something good and moral, and they need power in order to do what they think would improve society, and would which obviously a lot of people will oppose. So, because we also know that the Prophet Muhammad was faced with a lot of opposition, and so was Moses, and so were a lot of many of God's prophets. So how do we know if we're good or evil? We might think we're being perfectly reasonable and being noble and kind, when actually a lot of people think we're just evil or mad or stupid.
And Hitler didn't think he was evil. He thought he was doing everybody a favor. He was trying to make a better Germany. He didn't say he was evil. He went around in a white coat, and he was everybody's savior. And he saw lots of problems where there were lots of problems, actual problems. Clearly, there were so many people starving, and he said, "I'm going to fix it." And he fixed all sorts of family issues. I'm not promoting Hitler, by the way. I'm just saying, like, people who want power, they don't say I'm going to do evil with it. They think they're doing some sort of good with it. So and they promote themselves that way as well. Okay. I'm getting all sorts of interesting comments. I like it. Lots of participation. So you've got, do you know, or I don't know why, I think I've seen him or somebody in your stream somewhere, Orfeo Tresula or something. I don't know. It sounds familiar.
Yes, he is one of mine.
Okay. You're regulars, yeah. Okay. There were like half a dozen Hitlers. The project was to destroy Germans. Um, I don't know. I mean, there's obviously this comment. Was this comment before the stream started? Is that how you saw it, Claire? You sent it to me before.
I can't actually. Okay, so this your stream is being simultaneously streamed on my channel.
Yeah.
So that's where it comes from. Um, sorry, what was your question?
Because you sent it to me earlier on today, a long time ago.
Oh yes, Bubblegum Gun is one of mine,
Yeah.
and he posted that comment on your video
Before the stream started, isn't
before the
it?
stream even
Oh,
started.
okay. I
Yeah.
didn't even notice. Okay, yeah. So
Mhm.
cool. Okay, so completely the opposite. Life is hard because. So we'll talk about that. That's kind of like an overall sort of response. But I think Orfeo Tresciulla, if am I saying it reasonably right?
I
I don't
believe
know.
so.
Yeah, is kind of suggesting there's only a few Hitlers. I think there's a lot. Hitler, I think a lot of us are Hitlers if we're given the opportunity. And also, I'm going to sound like I'm promoting Hitler again, but the only one of the reasons why Hitler was Hitler is because he pursued things through great difficulty. It wasn't an easy task to do what he did, not the Holocaust bit, but to gain power itself from nowhere. Um, yeah, he probably sound like I'm a big fan of Hitler now,
But
but
the thing
yeah,
is, he had
not everybody
supporters
can be a
outside
Hitler because
Germany.
they don't have the commitment. Sounds terrible. What were you saying?
I was saying that he had supporters outside Germany, and there are articles in the Daily Mail of that time praising him. So it's not just,
Ah,
Germans praising Hitler. There were other people outside Germany who thought he was, he had interesting ideas that they wouldn't mind doing themselves. And I think we forget how endemic anti-Semitism was, because
mm.
I think, I think all Christians were supposed to be anti-Semitic anyway, because of the narrative that Jesus was,
They
killed by the
killed
Jews.
God. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
So it's kind of, yeah,
Yeah, and there's a
endemic.
lot of anti-Semitism now. There's a huge amount of anti-Semitism. I think it's on the rise, I would say. Um, so yeah, and clearly he made some differences. He started Volkswagen, didn't he? I think a car company, and brought back family values. Not that he's great again, but
But yet
we
he
can.
built the autobahns, and and the Vienna New Year concert, that was a Nazi tradition that people want to forget about. So, quite a few things that we enjoy now came from that period and were started by the Nazis, though they're not acknowledged.
So we've got Dust, a friend of ours. Yeah, you know Dust. So it said, if you know anything about the test, you know the person in the white coat never asked to kill a person. I never said that. He just said press the button, and
And
then
then
the
there'll be,
button says, and there was a scream, and they fully knew what was happening. I think we don't. There's no need to split hairs. It's best to try to understand rather than argue unnecessarily. Um, What's this? But the psychological analysis here is still withstanding. I think he's responding to Dust, I suppose. Yeah, I agree. That the main point is we learned enough about human beings that they will follow orders. Hitler was educated. Here we go. The Abrahamic way. He was supposedly a Christian, so there's a little bit of truth in that. There wasn't much about, yeah, maybe the way what you said, like some Christians were taught they're supposed to hate the Jews because the Jews killed God. Um, Hitler was educated the Abrahamic way in just living the dream of religious leaders. Yeah, I mean, I don't think people take you seriously if you just say everything is Abrahamic. Every problem just Abraham. Anyway, Time Magazine of the Year, Dust said this as well. Okay. Oh, God. This is a bit of a sidetrack, but I do feel like saying this, right? Dust once said, Hitler was Abraham. Sorry, I'm saying the wrong word now. Time Magazine of the Year. At that time, Time Magazine Man of the Year didn't mean that was somebody they particularly thought was good. I mean, I looked into it. They just thought somebody who made a difference, but maybe there's some truth in it. I'm not sure. What do you think? Have you ever heard of this, Hitler being Time Magazine Man of the Year?
Yes, because I mean, they would think, here's a man, an interesting man with interesting ideas, and newsworthy because of that, and the most newsworthy man, this year. So, it's not necessarily praise, but I suppose most people would be happy to be, considered man of the year in Time magazine.
Yeah, because when I researched it, maybe they were making excuses and they were saying it wasn't that he was the greatest or most revered person, but he made, I don't want to say made a difference because it sounds like a positive thing, like impactful, good or bad. But anyway, let's try to get to the main topic. I'm too easily being swayed by these things. My fault because I'm going through the comments. But anyway, so power is a means to love. Okay, so I'm going to go through all sorts of examples where ordinary people do actually want power. So if you go through a very simple example, what does it mean to be successful? What do you think it means to be successful?
To get what you want.
Okay, what do you want? Let's drill down. I'm going to talk about you at some point in more depth, but what do you want?
Okay, it's quite a high ambition because I want secular Quranism to be adopted ideally by the American Republic, because when it is finally done, the rest of the West will follow, and then the rest of the world will follow. And for this reason, I think Muslims should support me, but they don't like me presuming to interpret their Quran better than they have done in their 1400 years of history, so they don't cooperate, with a few noble
So
exceptions.
is that annoying? Is that annoying that they don't cooperate?
Yes, because I'm saying, this is a solution. You just have to talk about it. You don't even have to agree, to praise it. I don't mind if you say, "Oh, it's such a silly idea by this silly old woman. We hate her, and her ideas are silly because of ABC and XYZ." And I would rather that they did that than just, not
And why are
talk
you
about it,
trying
because
so?
I think it's easier to
No.
do dawah in that way, because they're complaining that secular Quranism will make it interesting for any person listening who isn't quite with the idea of converting to Islam, but they might later, or their children might.
So the reason why I'm asking this is, and I'm probably not doing it the best way, but if it is such a struggle, that suggests that you are annoyed that people are not accepting your authority.
Well, I'm not even expecting them to accept my authority, but I suppose I expect people to think like me. So if somebody came bouncing up to me and said, "I have this great world-changing idea, and I want to tell you all about it," I would listen, and I would ask questions. I would ask challenging questions. How are you going to do this grand idea, and all that? And I was kind of hoping that people will say, "Well, how are you going to do it?" And then I can answer. But it's all, "Oh, we don't want to hear it. It'll never catch on. Goodbye." And that's what I find frustrating.
Yeah. Do you see? You know what? I'm probably doing this really badly, and I thought I'd expecting it not to. My line of questioning not to be so good as to expose, let's see, the idea as simple as possible or more as clearly as possible. But what is the motive to work so hard to get an idea across and yet be frustrated? That suggests that you want acceptance. I'm probably doing it really badly, and I don't think you hide some of that to some extent, right? But if it was completely selfless and you're simply doing it for other people for their benefit and not at all 0% for your own benefit, it wouldn't. And you can disagree with me and whatever, but it wouldn't affect you. like, okay, I do these live streams. I want to help people. And I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm a million miles from perfect. I'm constantly working myself and very aware of this issue of wanting power of different forms. But I kind of not bothered what happens. It's like, I'm like, if I'm giving out medicines to everybody, and then some people, and people need the medicine. This is effectively what I see myself as doing. And then people that throw it like in the toilet or something, like, oh well, never mind. I mean, and I'm just giving out for free. I'm doing you a favor, and if you don't accept it, it's kind of like, I don't know if I'm expressing myself very well, and this is kind of practice for me. Just hopefully I'll express it better next time. But does it make any sense at all that if it's nothing to do with you and it's nothing to do with there's no ulterior motive to have any sort of power, just to be useful, then you don't get frustrated if there's no ulterior motive?
Yeah, but which is presumably why I'm doing it, because a lot of people say, "Oh, give it up, Claire. Do something useful with your life because it's never going to catch on, etc., etc." But I return to the subject again and again because I think this is the solution to all your problems. Why can't you just consider it properly? And am I being sort of narcissistic, or am I just saying it's such a simple solution? Why don't you try? Why don't you try and understand it? Instead of sort of running away. And so I don't really know. I mean, the analogy I can think of is the time when I saw this fox cub, this mangy fox cub in the morning, standing on a pizza box, trying to get at the pizza underneath it. And I was just kind of willing it to just step off the pizza box and flip it open. But it was just so anxious to get at the pizza, it just wasn't prepared to even, move back a little to consider the problem. And I feel I am that person again, and the fox cub is, I guess, the ruling classes of the West. Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And so I'm gonna drill down to a few examples of people I've been talking to and try to possibly explain to show people really that life is easy and you are making. So okay, let me put it this way. You can do extremely difficult things. I'm always trying to do all sorts of extremely difficult things. I'm trying to change the world. That's a really hard thing, right? But it doesn't feel difficult because I'm not invested in the outcome. I'm just playing my part. That's all. I have no intention of forcing people to accept it or whatever. I'll just keep answering questions, keep doing my bit. And that's a really enjoyable process. You kill the joy, the journey, the process when you're invested in a particular outcome and you want people's acceptance and stuff like that. That is a sign that you want power. If you want people's acceptance, if you need lots of views and subscribers and people to tell you your show is great, then would you say that's a sign that there's an element of you needing power? It's not the Hitler level power, but there's some need for or thirst for power if you need all this stuff?
Yeah, I think it is about the ordering of priorities. If you're a YouTuber, you obviously want lots of subscribers, and you might actually not say certain things because you don't want to upset your subscribers, and you might give them stuff, your subscribers, things that you don't really believe in, but which you think they like, and I guess I don't compromise on that. I will just say what I think, whether they like it or not, and I think that is how it should be if you believe in your message. And the other thing is that I think politics is a vocation, and by that I mean you just can't help but want to do it, and you're not doing it for money or glory. You just you believe in your cause so much that you just can't help yourself from returning to your
so yeah,
again and again.
Yeah.
And therefore you don't mind being mocked and ridiculed and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if it's When you say it's a vocation, I wouldn't say it's a vocation for most politicians, or maybe you can say it is, but most people would accept that they're power hungry and they don't have particular good motives. Um, okay, yeah. So, I mean, yeah, maybe in the examples that are coming up, maybe it'll become more obvious what I'm trying to say. But the thing I wanted to say, the reason why power makes life difficult is because it's essentially, when you have power, it's like any other material thing. Whenever you get a certain amount, you want more. It's essentially an addiction, and it makes your life difficult. So I'm not picking up these random topics for the sake of making a live stream. I generally can see that if we try to dig down into our lives and what makes it difficult, our lives should be simple. There are, well, in terms of our food needs, it's incredibly little, especially if you fast and things like that. You'll notice how little actually you need. But we overcompensate because we're miserable. We eat more food because we're unhappy. We watch lots of live stream video. Oh, not lots of live stream. I don't know. We've just watched lots of stuff and whatever, or have lots of sex, just more sex than we might need. I don't know.
To take our minds off our own restlessness, perhaps.
The restlessness, the emptiness. Great, exactly. So power is power for the sake of being powerful is an empty pursuit which never fulfills. And so now I'm going to quickly get to my theory based on. Okay, so this is a verse of the Quran, and to those who disbelieve. So the Arabic words are a lot more meaningful, especially like the word disbelieve essentially means people are hiding from the light or beauty or power of God, right? Their deeds are like a mirage in the desert. The thirsty one thinks it to be water until when he comes up to it, he finds it to be nothing, and he finds Allah near him who fully pays him his account, and Allah is swift in reckoning. So if you think about any addiction, it essentially, I would say, is very accurately described by this. What is an addiction? You think when you get that next hit, whatever it is, it doesn't have to be exactly drugs. It could be power, it could be more porn, it could be whatever. Then finally you have some peace and you'll be happy. That's the mirage effect. And mirage is a special kind of illusion which in the distant, it looks appealing. It looks like it will quench your thirst for, all the emptiness that you feel inside. But when you finally arrive at a mirage, it always disappears. And that's a perfect metaphor for what you experience in addiction. And then there's this idea that Allah pays you your account. You realize temporarily the emptiness of that pursuit, and you get punished for it. There's all sorts of punishment for it, for your empty addictions. They come in all sorts of forms, but self-hate or self-loathing is a big one, I would say. I think it's a source of depression and things like that, when you chase empty things. What do you think so far about, I'm going to lead on to, this is like kind of, maybe I'll say the next bit first, and then I'll ask you what you think about what I'm explaining here. So what's the solution? I thought I wrote something else. Anyway, so what I was going to say, the solution. So what is the solution, and what's it got to do with power? Basically, the word Islam means two things. It means peace, inner peace, outer peace as well, peace with the world. But it also means to submit your will or your power to God. Okay, to give so God doesn't need your power. Obviously, God is all powerful. So where does your power go? God tells you to give your power in service of other people. So let me just bring it all together. All I'm saying is that the word Islam is basically telling you how to live your life in a way that is fulfilling. So if you give up your own personal desires for other people, you give up your personal work, all the effort you put into making yourself powerful and important, and give other people power and help other people succeed and things like that, because that's what it means to give your power to God, because God doesn't need your power, only then will you have peace. So what I'm saying here is that when you don't do that, you are a disbeliever. And when you're a disbeliever, all your work will be futile and it will never be fulfilling. And that's what we see all the time. You see people who are after power, who are after money, who are after all sorts of things. Like if you buy a Ferrari, you don't really, most people who are living in the city and they have a Ferrari or a Lamborghini, they really don't use it they're not really getting it. If you just think about it a little bit, they're doing it to show off. Why are they doing it to show off? They're trying to show their dominance so that they can find love. Essentially, what they're doing is they're trying to be loved through power. I'm saying that doesn't work, and that's not your actual need is to
You
be.
don't want a woman who loves you for your car.
Yes.
And if you did find your woman, you'd be driving a different kind of car. You wouldn't be driving a Ferrari or Lamborghini. You'd be driving a family car probably.
Yeah, a woman who does love you, you would have a family with her, and you would have a family car, and you'd have more wholesome connection. Anybody who loves you for your car, your Ferrari, is essentially probably a gold digger, doesn't love you, just loves your stuff, and you'll feel that. So I suppose, I'm not sure how well I'm saying this, but
we must relate it back to Hitler.
Well, yes. I mean, we could come back to the lovely picture of Hitler. There we go. What is it? You can see. What did Hitler want? He just wanted to be loved, really. But the means were not very good. Some people would do anything, and it's a never-ending cycle. You want more power. You want more power, and we're not that different.
Yes, and I think with regard to having power, once you get it, you think, oh, everybody. I'm top man, and therefore I'm vulnerable to assassination because everybody would envy me because I'm top man. And then you become afraid of people who will want to take it away from you. So you don't get much peace. And then you wonder if your girlfriend really loves you, or anybody
you
really
question
loves
it.
you.
Exactly. That's right. Yeah.
For yourself, and what would happen if you lost power. So these are the questions that would arise.
And that comes in many forms, doesn't it? There's a famous examples of the people who win the lottery. They think they'll be happy, then because money is a form of power. And so when these people win the lottery, historically, they usually get more depressed because they lose all their friendships, because they question all their friendships. Everybody's asking for money and they say no, and they're greedy, and they build a wall around them, and then they become lonely and stuff like that. I mean, have you heard about this kind of what happens to people who win the lottery?
Yes, in the end, they destroy themselves because they waste their money, and they buy things they don't need, and they attract, scroungers and people who don't really care about them. And then eventually, they destroy themselves. But I was thinking, with regard to Hitler, he could have done more good things. I mean, we said at the beginning that he did do a few things that are continuing even now: the Autobahn, Volkswagen, and the Vienna New Year concerts. And I thought, oh yes, the thing that he did say he wanted to do was to end usury, because Germany suffered after the Wall Street crash, and suffered from hyperinflation, and having read Mein Kampf, I know that he totally disapproved of the stock market and regarded it as a kind of international casino, and he wanted to stop it. But when he was in power, he couldn't stop himself, because he had all these plans to invade Russia, and he needed money, so he needed usury. He needed actually.
And usury, for everybody, is the old or a religious name for interest-based lending, which is common nowadays. It's normal hair. Yeah.
Indeed.
But it's forbidden in all the Abrahamic faiths as a deadly sin. And we can see why, because it causes inflation, so many other things. And it's interesting. I read a bit of Mein Kampf when I was a teenager, but I didn't read it seriously all the way through. I never knew he talked about these fiscal or economic issues. It's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, he was going so far to say that he would abolish the stock market because he thought it was a form of gambling, and
I would agree.
Islam forbids gambling.
Yeah.
So, you know, and he was a teetotaler. So in some ways, Hitler was kind of Muslim, proto-Muslim in a way. And I thought, you know, if he had used his absolute power more constructively, he could have converted the Germans into the German
Islam.
Republic into an Islamic state.
It would have been more
He
successful.
would have,
Yeah.
you know, received all the love he wanted. You know, had it succeeded, and you know, so perhaps if he wasn't so intent on acquiring empire, you know, he could have used that opportunity to introduce Islam to Germany and then eventually to the rest of Europe. But he kind of missed that boat. Because war finance, which is another term for using usury to finance your wars, because you have to do it, you know, very carefully, or you'll get hyperinflation, and then your own people will overthrow you because they'll get tired of not being able to afford food and, you know, their staples.
Yeah. So yeah, and you need usury or interest-based lending from banks to pay for wars because they're too expensive. So, and the Quran is very much against that, because in the verse that talks about interest-based lending or usury, it describes it as creating hell, which certainly war is hell-like. Okay, so these are two things you said in the WhatsApp. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, heard of it? So you've got these different needs, and I'm saying, I'm just going to clarify a few things. I'm not sure if there's the perfect order in which to do it. After this, by the way, I'm going to give some examples of very common. So this is somebody I was talking to just before the live stream, good friend of mine. He feels like he's a failure. A lot of people, young people, feel like they're a failure. I'm going to show them how not to feel like a failure. Then there are a lot of people. There's somebody I know who's addicted to porn. Very common thing. A quarter of the world's internet traffic is porn, so it's very common, and so it should apply to a lot of people. And that's also a grab for a sort of power, and how to overcome that addiction and make your life better. And then, until we're talking about you, I'm going to describe you as a politician. By the way, I am being mean to Claire, but I'm being mean to it in a way because I know she's a lot nicer than most people I know. I'm just picking on small details about you, Claire. But anyway, so that's where we're going. But before that, let's talk about some things. We've got Maslow's hierarchy of needs, heard of it? So I suppose the question there was, am I saying power is a need? I'm not saying it's a need. In fact, I'm saying it's the opposite. The needs, if you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, are things like love, belonging, safety, self-esteem, self-actualization, things like that, right? Those are the needs, and I would agree with them. Okay, self-actualization, really understanding who you are, what would be a meaningful life for yourself, all this kind of stuff, right? Okay, but what people do is they try to achieve those things through power. Okay, and because they're selfish, because they don't want to give their power to other people, like Islam suggests. Okay, and it never fulfills that way. So, for example, you could try to get love, like in the Ferrari Lamborghini example. You can try to, or you can even pay for prostitutes. You're not really getting love in that sense. You're not going to be fulfilled either, because you know that person doesn't give a crap about you. They're just taking your money, and so that's not an effective way to achieve the needs in Maslow's hierarchy. The effective way is the selfless way, it's the most fulfilling way, and it's the most meaningful way. And the reason why I talk about meaning is because psychologists like Viktor Frankl explain that's where happiness comes from. So what do you think? Do you understand what I'm trying to say? I'm saying power is not a need, but it's a means, and it's a unfulfilling mean, because we're all most of us are stupid, and we go about fulfilling our needs in a stupid way, in a self-harming, unfulfilling way. Does that make any sense?
Yes, I'm looking at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and I think it might be helpful if I just listed them in order of importance.
Sure.
So the first one is physiological. Food and shelter. Safety is feeling safe with your supply of food and shelter, and then belonging and love. Obviously you want somebody, your family around you, and then esteem, I think, is where people kind of get stuck on, because esteem is to do with self-esteem, and self-esteem is to do with our status, and power helps us achieve a higher status, and so all this centers on politics. It's sort of, is it, it's not fair that they're treating me so badly, or, oh, I should have something better than my crappy car. Something is wrong with society. I need to go and fix it.
So some people, you're saying, achieve self-esteem by complaining about the world and being a victim. Is that what you're saying?
Well, not necessarily. I'm saying status is something that people will fight and kill for, because we know that even animals do that, because we know that dogs, the pets of owners occasionally savage their children. So we know that, people, dogs are told not to get a dog until they've completed their family or something, just so they know that the dog knows that it in status it is below the crying infant. Or the dog will be so angry and upset that there's this, crying bundle of baby always yowling, and its master or mistress not paying enough attention to it. I mean, even though it's been fed and given, walks and whatever, it's still not enough, because it feels that the attention it used to enjoy has been usurped by this infant. And one of the reasons why dogs sometimes savage the infants of their owners is because of this resentment that spills over into, a killing rage.
Yep.
And it, obviously for humans, it also operates as this resentment, like, oh, I don't think you should be above me. You're rubbish at your job, and I'm much better, but I'm being ignored because of X, Y, Z. That sort of idea. So I think we all get stuck at esteem, most of us, because we don't think we're getting the status that we deserve. And this is where politicians come in to stir up our discontent, to harness our resentment for their own objectives, which Hitler was doing, like, blame the Jews, kick them out, and then your society will be better. But of course, it didn't happen in the way that he said it would.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about what you said, we get stuck in self-esteem. I think generally when you're addicted, you always feel stuck in a rut. It's never enough what you get, because you're basically trying to achieve it the wrong way. How do you feel about that?
Yes, because I'm thinking of these behavioral addictions like shopaholism, because a lot of shopaholics don't actually even open their acquisitions when they get home. What they enjoy is seeing something they really like and buying it, and putting, seeing it put into some fancy shop bag, and taking it home. But once they get home, they don't really want it anymore.
Yeah. So then go on. I keep interrupting you. You were saying, go on.
So what I'm trying to say is okay. Another example is when I did smoke, There was a time when I was actually smoking, and I thought, oh, I must light another cigarette. When absentmindedly, I still had a cigarette in my hand. So there was obviously some kind of psychological need that wasn't being satisfied by already having the cigarette, because the cigarette only represented some other need. So, or the radio's on, but I was so not listening to it that I thought I'd turn the radio on, but it was already on. If you know what I
Sure.
mean.
So you're describing different kinds of addictions, and then we have to question what is behind those addictions, because sometimes we often nowadays in the West we lack introspection. We don't really dig deep inside because we're so used to expressing or just understanding things in a very narrow materialistic way. So you question, like, why is it that people keep buying stuff they don't need? It's not just random. There's always a reason. And maybe, so if we go into a practical example, it could be, this is a typical one: women buying loads of shoes that they don't need. I mean, I've heard of this many times. My wife doesn't do it. Maybe she does a little bit. My daughter does a little bit as well. But like, why would you buy the shoes? Is because you're hoping that people respect you more. Would you say that's right? You don't buy crappy shoes. What would be what's the reasoning for the addiction to buying lots of shoes that you barely ever wear?
I think it's the kick that we get when we see something we like, and then the pleasure we have upon acquisition.
Sure, but
So,
if you think deeply, what is the kick? The kick is you imagine yourself wearing it, and then you imagine somebody giving you a compliment, right?
uh,
I doubt that's missing. I think sometimes it's too subtle and we're not aware of it. I think because it doesn't make sense otherwise. What is the nature of the kick?
just a pleasure of acquisition, I would say.
I doubt that. I don't agree. I think
Mhm.
that's not enough introspection. I think the reality is that we see ourselves. I don't see myself particularly. I don't wear too many shoes, but yes, I wear some shoes. You say you're a woman who wears too many shoes. There's something behind it. What is it? You imagine yourself wearing the shoes. You imagine people loving you more for the shoes, and therefore, since they
Noticing
love you,
us,
yeah, and
taking
then
notice of us.
but then what? Where does it lead to? A form of power, and then they will listen to you. That's what it. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense.
We want attention.
Yeah, but what
That's
for?
what we are
What
like.
reason? But for what reason? What people don't just want. Just like the thing we were talking about, the makeup, right? People wear makeup for a reason. When you analyze it, you're essentially sexualizing yourself and saying, "I'm ready to mate." But you don't. People don't want to hear that because it sounds terrible. But there's always a reality that we need to dig, and it's really helpful to dig. People might think, oh, why are you being so difficult on yourself? When you realize how simple you are and how simple your needs are, and somehow how stupid your needs are, and it's very important to show how stupid your needs are, then only then do you stop doing stupid things, when you realize how simple and stupid and how obvious they are. Do you see what I'm saying? Do you get I'm trying to show how dumb it is, so you stop doing dumb things. So not you particularly, so we all stop making our lives difficult. Like, does that make any sense
Yes, we
about the
should
shoes?
analyze the motives, our own motives for doing certain things that we don't even think, we don't even question. It's like, oh, well, I'm a bit bored. I think I'll go shopping or whatever it is. I mean, some people might go drinking, some people might go gambling, or anything that they're not supposed to do. Any of the sins that we're
And there's
supposed to
always a
avoid.
reason. There's always something missing that they desire. When they go drinking, there's a reason. When they go gambling, there's a reason. So I'm going to get to the next bit. Bubblegum Gun says, completely the opposite. Life is hard because people lack power. To surrender power to a select few is the problem of the indoctrinated people, stupid people who give away their powers just because their religion tells them so or something. There is only power, and those too weak to seek it. God is power. Interesting. It said God is power. I felt like it's the opposite of everything she said. So she or he, I don't know. He. Okay, you know bubblegum, yeah. Oh, because it's a regular of yours. So most of it, except for the God is power bit, sounded like, actually, don't be dumb. Don't give away your power. And then God is power. I'm going to ignore that because I don't see how it fits in with this. Kind of sounds like the exact opposite. Maybe I'll ignore it for a second so I can try to understand. So that's what a lot of people fear losing power. That's why I like this comment, actually. Most people fear losing power. And I'm going to try to put power, and I'm trying right now to put power in its proper light. And its proper light is it's a form of addiction, and unfulfilling addiction. And when you try to gain power, you're never happy. So to say, first of all, life is only hard because you make it hard because your needs are very little. And you think it's hard because you're trying to gain power. You're trying so hard to gain power. And then what you're trying to achieve is really bad for you. So maybe the way I'm going to put it is something like this. If you replace the word power with addiction, it wouldn't sound so tempting. But it's the reality of power. People who search for power, they don't do very well in life. Look at Hitler. Look at all these other people who went to the extremes of wanting power. Their lives are not particularly happy. And people without power, your bubblegum gun is trying to portray these people as the most miserable. I think they're some of the most happy people. When I say power, for example, a way of giving away your power is paying charity, buying somebody else a coffee. And there's loads of psychological experiments which demonstrate when you give away your power in these different ways, you are far happier. There's great videos. I'll probably put a link to them. How money can buy happiness. Yeah, probably that's a good one to start off with. But yeah, so to summarize, if you replace the word power with addiction, it doesn't sound so enticing. I can see where you're coming from, but the reality is the opposite of what bubblegum gun is saying. What do you think, Claire?
I think what you were saying made me think of Islam and the actual meaning of it, which is the peace that you get through submitting to God. And I suppose it's when you accept that there is a higher power and you better follow his rules, then you get the peace, like that I guess you didn't, because if you think that you're the one controlling things, you'll always be going back on your mistakes. It's like, oh, I should have done this instead of that. If only I had done, whatever instead of the thing I actually did. And you can, torture yourself endlessly going over, questions of shoulda, woulda, coulda. And but when you think, oh well, it's all in God's hands, then you get that peace, and maybe that is what you were talking about, the peace that you get when you surrender your power and say, all right, I'm not going to be telling anybody what to do now. I will just follow orders.
100%. I think you've said it better than I could. Thank you very much for being here. Yeah, thank you so much. Okay, yeah. And so, yeah, I was a bit confused because in the beginning, Bubblegum Gun said completely the opposite, like as if they were disagreeing with what I was saying. And life is hard because people need power. And if you give up power, that's a bad thing. And then it said God is power at the end, which is, I agree. And maybe we both interpreted what Bubblegum Gun said differently. I don't know, in the opposite way.
Yeah, I mean, they're not in proper sentences, so it's difficult to know what it means or the point he's trying to make. I assume that he believes in God. I think. I mean, or
Right.
do you think he's an atheist?
Well, he said It said God is power, so I kind of assume believes in God, unless, and it did it with capital G. I don't know. I'm confused.
So I guess his first sentence is that people are miserable because they feel they lack power and status, and some people might submit to the wrong people, bad people, for wrong reasons, and what I find puzzling, there's only power and those two.
No. So it starts off with this. So it starts off really with this. So that's actually quite insightful. Power is not addiction. Power is addiction.
Well, Orfeo Trishula, he doesn't make much sense usually. So
I thought he was agreeing with me and saying he was good.
It's very difficult to know what he's actually saying. I mean, it is annoying that a lot of people, don't really make much sense when, and their sentences don't.
You're so mean, Claire. I think he was saying. I think. I think he was saying that they shouldn't. They're so akin, as it were. Power and addiction, that you shouldn't even separate. You shouldn't even say is an addiction, power is addiction. Maybe he's going over the top and whatever, agreeing. I don't know. Anyway, so essentially he, I believe, is agreeing that power is addiction. I suppose that's all it is, really.
Yeah, I think it's this reminds me of a very cynical saying. I think it came from the ancient Athenians, because it begins, don't have children because they might be bad, but if they are good, you will fear to lose them, so don't have children at all. So
sounds like a Westerner. Okay.
And so they're basically saying,
Jay, by the way, Jay, you can come on. I'm just going to post the join link to anybody who wants to join. I've never done that before, so it sounds like an interesting idea. So I just posted it in the live chat. Yeah, go on. So Athenians are saying don't have children in case it goes wrong,
because they might be bad and give you problems. But even if they're good, you will fear to lose them, I guess, in war, because the Athenians were always fighting the Spartans, and I guess lots of people's sons are killed in war. So I guess that's why they got so cynical. But and I guess the equivalent is that if you have power, it's obviously very precious. You taken a lot of trouble trying to acquire it, and you'll never have any peace because you think somebody's going to come and take it away from you, and therefore you won't be happy.
That's right. Just like with money is never enough. And then when you've got the money, again, a really funny quote from this Arab or Jordanian person I was talking to. Is an older person, about 60 something. And he said, rich people don't spend their money. They're just guardians over it, from his experience, because they're so scared of losing it. All they do is spend time protecting it. Okay, I'll quickly go to this comment. But anyway, feel free. I've just, posted it in the live chat and join in. But what's this? An excess of stoicism has happened in the past, as you referenced. Me and Claire, I think we're both against stoicism. I think it's essentially listing the problems but not solving them. And I've done videos about that. So let's talk to Jay. Do you know Jay by any chance, Claire?
Yes, I do.
Reasonable person?
You'll see.
We're going to find... Who's Jay? Hello, Jay.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Welcome.
Oh, good. Hi, Claire.
Hello.
I'm speaking through my iMac with no headphones, and it's just coming.
But it sounds all right.
But it's
Tell me something about your... Go on.
I did a speed awareness course, which is what happens in England when you get caught going too fast. And I spent 3 hours doing it yesterday, so hopefully it'll work as well as what that did.
Okay. Tell me something about yourself, and then what your comments are about what we're talking about.
Well, it was the bit.
But something about yourself first. Something
All
about
right,
yourself first. 1 or 2 words at least.
Oh,
Hard to say.
yeah.
So
honestly,
are you a fan
He
of
had
the
a speeding
person?
ticket.
Are you a nationalist of some sort? There's a picture of what's his name? I've forgotten his
oh,
name
Nigel
already.
Nigel
Farage.
Farage.
Marriage.
Well, I
Are you a
guess,
fan?
yeah, I guess I am. But that picture was put
Robinson
on.
supporter he is.
Yeah, anything. Claire knows me better than what I know myself. So, as you can probably hear, she's my twin sister. But no, I was on a stream a little while ago with somebody who doesn't particularly like Nigel Farage, so I thought I would endear myself.
Just to wind him up. Oh, I see.
No,
okay.
but I do appreciate nationalism, and when it works, it's really good. But it's neither working now or not. It's just not working. But no,
me and
from
Claire are
England.
going to be talking about why nationalism doesn't work at the moment. In fact, I'm talking about it tomorrow with
All right.
Dust, one of the many topics. But I'm going to also be talking, I think, with Claire, who's had some great insights about it. But anyway, I agree with nationalism if it's a positive form of nationalism. There's a negative form, which is always anti everything else. But anyway, what have you got to say about this topic?
Well, I've got quite a bit of experience with addiction. I used to be quite addicted to alcohol, and part of the recovery process is obviously stopping the drink, and then you hopefully get well, where you get to a point where you don't need or want the drink. If you're wanting it, but mentally forcing yourself not to have it, that's not a good place. Ideally, you want to get to the place where you don't need it, where you're mentally sane, which I've been that way for many years, which is great. But in that recovery process, there's quite a lot of God or spiritual work, and quite a lot of it is what you were talking about, why people buy shoes. And there's one of the lines in one of the books that we read is that the subject, as in the person, thinks that if he or she manages well, rest, satisfaction from the world, all will be well. And in simple terms, that means if I get these shoes, I'll be fine. If I get this job, I'll be fine. If I get this, I'll be fine. If I earn the money, I'll be fine. If I
if I get this, then yes,
yeah. But ultimately, it comes from a lack of God and a lack of and almost an inheritance and a feeling of God. I don't just mean doing the rituals, but actually knowing that you're well without that stuff, and none
you're
of it
talking about the
really...
12 steps, isn't it? Which is a very spiritual process.
Yeah, but there's quite a lot of literature like offset and from around it and things like that. But ultimately, they take, and it's also from 1930s Christianity, like the New Age Christianity, which kind of went from Ireland to New York. It's the sort of stuff that Claire hates. Where they saying that you need to have like an absolute faith in God, and then that is the beginning, and that's why they believe. I think it's in the Old Testament where one of the commandments or whatever is that like you shall have no God before me, and that's to protect us. And it sounds like God's insecure, God's jealous, God's needs us to worship him and that, but it's actually for our own protection, because if the woman and Claire does not, well, in that sense, dress up. She's not like, doesn't flaunt her latest designs and like some girls do or women do. Claire's quite
plain dressing.
Humble. Just what's the word, Claire?
I guess I'm not flamboyant in my.
I think I prefer Jay's word, humble. I think that's a good way. Yeah.
Yeah, but she doesn't need it. She doesn't need to, you know, some women think, oh, men, you know, I need to have that, I need to have that, and it doesn't work, which is why they keep doing it. Now, if the pair of shoes worked, then they wouldn't need to buy the next pair. And then it's the search for
Can
God.
I give an interpretation? This is, I think, very much the Islamic interpretation of what you just said from the Bible. You would have no other God except the one true God is what you have to say to become a Muslim. It means the other gods are these material desires, and you only want one thing, which is one God. And if you don't depend, if you have any other desires besides God, if you make anything else a God, anything an idol, you know, like they say, what was that American Idol? You're idolizing things. If you idolize anything else but God, you will not have peace. That's what that really means, as far as I understand.
No, that's you said that better than me. Absolutely. But also what's interesting is that's not to say that good shoes are not good shoes, because we'd rather wear good shoes than the holy shoes. Excuse me.
Holy, literally holy? What do you mean?
I do have a story about shoes.
Go on then. Go on.
That a Muslim woman kind of, well, I heard it from her. So she was talking about shoes, and we were actually talking about polygamy. So she was saying, well, I have more than 4 pairs of shoes, and I suppose men want more than one wife in the way that we women want more than one pair of shoes. So that was this sort of funny little story that this woman, the Muslim woman, gave to me.
Sure. Okay. So let's move. I'm very interested. Can I ask you some searching questions, Jay? Yeah. What was it that you were missing with alcohol?
God.
You eventually found that, right? And what did you think you would get? That's a great question, because you know what? I'm going to clarify some of the things, because now you said it, I'm just going to, because you just jumped straight to the answer, which is great. If you, what it is, I think power is not the answer, but it's our delusion, because we love to delude ourselves. Our ego makes us do dumb stuff all the time. Okay, like, you know, buying more and more stuff to, like, you know, live stream videos or streaming videos and stuff, so we can get Netflix and watch it all by ourselves, and then we'll be happy what we do. But what we do by doing that is we cut everybody off, all our friends, and we become lonely and we become depressed. So we're really good at being dumb in how we spend our money and how we try to achieve happiness. We're really, really bad at it, okay? And power is one of those really, really bad ways. That's the essential way by which we try to achieve happiness, through essentially making ourselves God. By not giving our power to God, we want to be God ourselves. Maybe does that make any sense? Because
absolutely,
you just said
perfect sense. Okay. And I can hopefully add a little bit to it, where what's quite cunning is that it does work initially. So when you get the power, so if you're streaming now, obviously you are, and suddenly you find there's 135 viewers watching, there's a little sense of I've arrived, I'm there, I'm doing, and it's that it's that feeling. Now that you might want to repeat that feeling. So it's hard not to feel good when people comment on you're looking good, Jay, or your shoes are good, Claire, or something. And we are humans and we do have egos, but it's where we really have to be watchful on us not thinking, right, I have to hell with all that other stuff. I can bypass it now because I've found the answer. And then we become God, almost because we've got 135 followers or 1 million followers or £1 million. And it's almost like they're the devil's toys. And it's not that shoes are bad or money is bad. It's our relationship to it, with it, and how it affects us.
100%. People who say capitalism is bad and things like that, I think they missed the point. Money is just it doesn't have life. It doesn't have good or bad. It's what we do with it, sort of thing. So it's all these kind of things.
Well,
Social media isn't bad.
it's
If you get
very
lots of
funny.
views, it's not bad. If it helps people, but if your relationship with it, if you need the views to be to feel valid, or whatever the word is, then that's an issue. Then you're making yourself to God, and you're not there to serve people. You're trying to serve yourself.
Well, it's the ego that feels valid. We look to validate the ego, and then you wake up the next morning, and it's the ego that needs fulfilling, not the soul. So then that starts that sort of trip.
Yeah.
Well, some would say to the asylum, where you're constantly needing power or attention.
Yeah. And I would say something, which is that you don't really feel quite like the God that you described when you get your 135 viewers and whatever it is. You feel like I'm almost there, but you never feel fulfilled. And when you do achieve, imagine your goal was 135 viewers and you achieve it, temporarily go, oh, that was good, and then you really feel crap about it. I think that's the reality of addiction, and that's why I absolutely love this particular definition from the Quran about the description of addiction. It's a mirage. It always looks good from the distance. When you achieve it, it's crap, and you get punished for it. So let me ask you a question. I mean, do you agree with that at all?
No, it's fantastic words. It is a mirage. It's a delusion. The self-search, self-seeking that we do, suffering from the delusion, and when we get it, it may initially make us feel something, but ultimately, afterwards, as you say, it's a feeling of a low, a depression, and we're back to where we were. And
so what was it that you were trying to get when you were an alcoholic? What do you think you were trying to get when you were an alcoholic? What were you missing? I mean, if you'd name one thing, maybe a number of things, but one thing.
Well, drunk is one. First thing that comes to mind.
Sure, but, and there's a reason behind that.
Yeah, like it's a brilliant question.
Should I tell you what I think it is? Because it's very easy for Muslims to see, I think. Because when you're not part of it...
I just quickly say,
you're
in so much spiritual pain because, like, I'd done quite a lot of things. I'd achieved quite a lot. At one point in my life, got a lot of money. And I always thought that would be the thing that would solve the problem. And it didn't. It really did not, to the point where I'm in trouble, and I
totally get it. And along the way, it wasn't like you suddenly woke up. I don't think it's true, or maybe Westerners, and I'm being a bit mean here by keep saying Westerners, but I think people appreciate that in Western society we're becoming more godless, and we're becoming less aware inside of what's happening with us.
Completely.
So I don't think that you suddenly woke up one day and said, I'm spiritually bankrupt. I'm so empty that I'm in pain. I think there were lots of telling signs on the way that you're doing a job, whatever it is, that's making you loads of money, and you know it's pointless, but it was subtle and you ignored it. And then it just got worse and worse.
Yeah.
And then you had to try to kill the pain with alcohol.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that takes maybe, I don't know how many years, 20, 30 years to go downhill, then to go uphill.
Yeah.
You're right. It doesn't happen like overnight. And it's a very hideous condition that it's not like a broken leg where you get it fixed. I mean, it takes you a long time to really lose everything. Externally and internally, and then you come back, and it's difficult because you could be middle-aged or
because in Western society, because we stopped being spiritual, and by the way, I encourage people to become better Christians as well, if that's the
Yeah.
easiest, closest thing they have to spirituality. I think Islam's the best form of spirituality, but I'm not going to go into that because I've been brought up just make people better in the way they can, and Islam even encourages that. He said, if you're going to be it says, like, even if you don't want to become a Muslim, come to something you agree on, which is one God, and that's the starting point. But anyway, so I'm getting two things, because this is the whole point of this whole talk. Why don't we go into a little bit of depth about what is addiction and why do we suffer from it? So it sounds like you wanted power of some sort through your jobs and money so you can achieve something. That could is that right? What
I always
can you label what was that thing you were trying to achieve? You still there?
Recognition, notoriety, attention, I guess power in that sense. And
100%, exactly.
And it did come, I'll be honest, at age 26, and it came pretty quick. Like, and then suddenly all my problems that I thought all my problems would go, and the emptiness that we call the hole in the soul was even bigger, because I had the very answer that I always thought would solve the problem, and it didn't. Now, and within a week or 2 weeks of that, I was in a doctor's surgery, like a wreck, a real, and I didn't know what was wrong with me. And I had, trappings of wealth and all kinds of stuff. And
would you say in the West we're not good at introspection? So we wait until it's really bad. We don't look at the little things. So in Islam, we're told, my daughter's name is taqwa. Taqwa means to look at the tiny details that are wrong and fix them. We don't do that in the West.
When there's a war and well, not a modern war, I guess, but the opposition get to their territory and they dig a trench, then they get in. Once they're in, you can't get them out, because they've got guns on you and you can't see them. So you have to get the opposition out before they get in. So it's the same with you when you say the little details. You got to nip them in the bud. So if your daughter were to come home maybe drunk one night when she's 13 or 15, that's the time to possibly address it, as opposed to when she's 18 and you've let it slip. So
and there's a million more micro steps before that. If my daughter was wearing tons of makeup and needed loads of attention, that's the thing that will lead to get her drunk at all, ever. Like, because as a Muslim, when I look at people who get drunk, I think, why do they need it so much? It's really sad, because one of the many reasons why people drink alcohol is to connect with people, because they're so disconnected.
That's I've never had a problem connecting with people, and whereas most alcoholics do. I never had that, and I was probably on my own with that one. But the connection thing is, I'm fortunate enough to I can go into a room full of people and talk to people. Like, I'm not too self-conscious in that sense.
Maybe that's something to do with a good part of your upbringing. Like, I was brought up,
I think so,
that everybody is my brother, sister, uncle, whatever, and I don't feel, even if they don't treat me the same way, I've always felt, and I've been brought up within a massive Muslim community where I have experience of all kinds of people, from all over the world, by the way, not just brown people, let's just say, where so I'm used to being friends with everybody. That's how I was brought up. Maybe you had something like that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, and I do enjoy this, for example. I'm listening to everything that you say, and I'm thinking, and, we probably both hopefully be better off for it. And people that are listening, it's all good. I think in the West, I think that there is too much introspection in the form of therapy, and I think that can make a lot of problems worse.
I think therapy by the NHS is crap. It's the blind following the leading the blind. They don't know anything about spirituality or the real answers, and they just tell you stuff like whatever you're feeling is right. No, whatever you're feeling is not the right way necessarily. No. If you feel like taking more alcohol, that's not right. There's if you think you're, I don't know, I'm not going to do identity politics or whatever you call it, but yeah, I think I don't think introspection is bad. I think some people have no idea how to lead that introspection because they're blind, spiritually bankrupt and blind themselves.
But I think that comes from if a person is spiritually bankrupt themselves, then they'll use the brain to fight the way out of it. Where in the spiritual world, the religious world as well, the brain is not an important factor. As in the external world or the Western world. So in the Western world, we taught that what we have to have is X, Y, Z. We taught what we should like is X, Y, Z. We even taught how to get X, Y, Z. And it's all mental. And
I would disagree a little bit because I would say in the West, we like to think we're logical, but we believe in magic. What do I mean by that? We believe in romance, for example. Okay, I believe in kindness through a long-term relationship, but Westerners believe in romantic love, where there's somebody out there meant for you, and they'll come to you. They'll be soulmates, and you won't have to make any effort. This is the reality of a lot of Western thinking, and they tell themselves they're logical, but they're far, far from it. No, I think spirituality is very logical because that's how you distinguish between fact and fiction. But we've put spirituality to some Western spirituality is a load of crap, I would say, most of it, because
I'd agree. And a lot of Christianity is as well. And the magic, I think, what did you say? The delusion or the magic, the
mirage.
The mirage that the West has, that you can almost think your way into wellness or analyze it. But the biggest mirage is that you will find happiness with something outside of yourself, and that doesn't work really. And and then the problems start when it doesn't work. Or without going down another route, what's happening now is I've got friends who are married architects, have gone to university, got degrees, got 2 children, and they're in debt every month. They just cannot make ends meet because of the rise in bills, the rise in mortgage rate, etc. So they've actually done the right thing, but politically now they're getting screwed. The middle classes, upper working class, whatever. So there's a lot of disharmony with those type of people. But
are you married by any chance?
Pardon?
Are you married?
No, I was.
Okay.
And,
I'm asking that because this is a major issue that I'm going to be talking about as well. There's lots of articles about people who want to be married. They don't want to be single. Relationships are failing. People want to have children, but it doesn't work out. And it's causing a lot of problems in the West. So we're talking about, I want to point out, I like this thing, Orfeo Treasurer, making loads of really interesting points. Only the infinite can satisfy the empty. That's fantastic. I think there's a lot of empirical evidence, even from the business sector about this. There's somebody called Simon Sinek who talks about infinite games. It's the only way to have a fulfilling life. If you engage in something, you don't get involved to win. You get involved to stay in the game. He explains it much better than I do, and keep making improvements or something like that. But there's a lot of truth about the need for the infinite, which is essentially God. I'm going to move on to I'm trying to make a bit more progress, but make more progress. I think what we were talking about is the main thing anyway. I'm going to talk about different categories, and I'm going to get Claire. Claire, hopefully you're not getting bored. You're right there. You're still there.
I'm here. I'm here.
So
I'm
I'll try to
listening.
get you involved as well. But I'm loving Orfeo. No, unless you're not Orfeo. So you're. Let me click away from this. You are Jay. Okay, so this is one of the major causes of anguish in young people's lives, and especially I would say failure. The sense of you're a failure. Very good, kind friend of mine feels that he's a failure, and then I asked him, if I look at his life, as with many people, they're actually chosen not to have lots of jobs, right? They've actually they live. So just without going into too much detail, he's working from home. That's pretty comfortable. He makes enough money. He goes for outings and restaurants all the time, quite frankly. His life is not that bad. He's not dying. In fact, if you were a lot poorer, you'd probably be a lot happier and more healthy as well. That's maybe a different story. So, and then I asked him, like, what would make you successful if you had? And then if you, it would be just some other increment, like another job that wasn't even that amazing. And the point is, when I drilled down to who it is you think makes you feel unsuccessful, is there somebody you imagine? It's all people. Okay, this, I suppose I'm probably not expressing it well, but we don't realize that actually our sense of failure comes from other people's opinions. We really care about other people's opinions, even though we think we're all independently minded. I myself have to keep working on it. That I have to keep thinking I only care about God, not anybody else, right? And there's really good reason not to care about anybody else, because I think this is a useful tool to realize how dumb people are. Not to care about their opinions is a useful tool, I think. And that's not just an insult. We're all really stupid in the way we do things. Like, maybe I'll dig into that at some point. But essentially, if I boiled down his problem, he cared that his mum, essentially, it wasn't just his mum, but I think he cares a lot about what his mum thinks, and his sister and a few other people. He wanted his mum to accept his greatness, that he did something good. And it sounds really dumb. And I told him, I want him to watch this, by the way. What do you think about that? I'll ask Claire, because Claire hasn't spoken for a bit. Claire, do you think we care more about people's opinions, and that is our definition of success in reality? Because what is success? Hardly anybody can even define it. So in reality, it's a moving goalpost, and maybe that goalpost is in our minds, and largely it's in our fear of what other people think about us. Do you think there's any truth in that?
I think a lot of people just want to be envied for their success, or whatever they have that those who envy don't have.
So they're slaves to other people's opinions, therefore.
Yes, and what they're doing also is to provoke envy, and envy is supposedly a thought crime, a sin. It's one of the 7 deadly sins.
Sure, and it's not a bad idea to label it as sin, because it's harmful to you. Because the person, if you're trying to make people envious of you, it sounds like, oh, that's a bad thing to do. It's actually harmful to yourself, because you become addicted.
Hatred.
Sorry?
You're actually inviting people to hate you, because people hate those they envy.
Yes, that as well. But the thing is, I think the more I think that's a lesser problem, because actually nobody cares what you think. Nobody cares about you, like your success or failure too much. I don't think, really, besides a few comments here and there on, a live chat or something. People don't really care. I think the greatest harm is that you do to yourself in setting yourself up to, I don't know, needing people's approval. Like, if you want them to envy, say you've got the shoes or whatever it is, and you take the photo of the shoes and you put it on, I don't know what it is, some sort of social media, you need people's approval. Like, oh, that's a great thing. And if you don't get it, or you don't, and whatever you get, it will never be enough. So 1,000 people say your shoes are amazing, you'll go, oh, that's nice, and then you'll feel, I don't think it will fulfill. I don't know if I'm expressing it very well,
Well,
but I
think
know it doesn't fulfill.
You are. Good.
Yeah, I mean, it's like getting likes on your social media posts. You know, if you get 135 viewers this time, you'll think, oh, if you'll be disappointed if not fewer than 135 viewers look at your next stream.
Oh yes, exactly. Thank you, Claire. So exactly. So to get that hit again, so you had 1 million people press the like button on your picture of your shoes. The hit won't last very long at all. Okay, you'll be alone by yourself in your room, and you realize you're not very happy. You'll go out and buy another pair of shoes, and you'll need at least that. If you get 500,000, you're going to be depressed because last time you got 1 million. Is that what you were saying? Something like, I don't know, but
yes,
that's yeah. Okay, so but I like to get to solutions really quickly, and this is immediately what works for me, and this is essentially what Islam is: help those who you hate. So it's not just hurt those you hate, help everybody indiscriminately as best as you can. But I'm thinking about this lovely person who doesn't generally hate people, but he feels like a victim of so many people because he's just a very soft, gentle kind of guy, and he doesn't do politics and things like that. And why is that? So this is something I've written, but I'm not sure how to express it. But I would just say it from my own experience. I've been really disappointed with people. I think naturally we are disappointed in people because people are not God. They don't mind readers. They're not wonderful. They're not perfect. They're not necessarily evil. They're just so, involved in their own life to be particularly involved in your life, right? And so, especially in Western society, people can feel left out, alone, and not appreciated. Not so much in a place like Jordan, where very family structure, we live in multi-generational households, you're always getting loads of attention, you're not desperate for attention. And when you go out, you go to the shop, people are talking to you and friendly, and I've done videos where they're barely buying anything in the shop. They're just talking to each other and having a good time and respecting each other as well. These kind of things are incredibly important. So I can see this person is struggling, as many people in the West do. And because of that struggle, people start hating everybody. There's a lot of hate between people. So essentially you start hating everybody, and he does feel very alone, this person. And I've been there as well, when I thought, why aren't people good enough? And the thing that flipped it was when I expected absolutely nothing from anybody. And I said, I'm here for everybody, and that's it. And that flipped life, that made it interesting, that attracted good people like Claire and Jay and whatever to me. Like, this is an interesting stream. If I kept to, I'm not going to help anybody, I'm not going to be selfless, I'm going to only help people who help me, you wouldn't have interesting shows like this. I wouldn't come across interesting people, and somehow it pays for itself. But I'm never expecting anything, and wherever I get anything at all, it's like that's a bonus. And that's the rough idea that I think genuinely helps people. Go on, Jay. What were you going to say?
That's the whole essence of the New Testament, really, in Matthew. I mean, it's know them by their fruits, and you demonstrate it. And I'd agree with you. Completely. It's almost a death of self by living outside yourself and be there for others, but not as a do-gooder. Now this gets quite complex, but
not as a show-off.
Yeah, I once did about 18 months of homeless work in London, and it's when I realised that it was probably more for my ego. And I was telling people about it as well, almost promoting it, and so I was doing it. But there was a big area of self with it. But I understood every word.
And it's always in the details, isn't it? This is the word taqwa I'm talking about, my daughter's name, which means analyzing the small things. It's not like giving feeding the homeless people, I bet there was a lot of good in it, and maybe you're being a little bit hard, but there was some bad, and it's the deep and the subtle things that you have to twist, and you shouldn't stop feeding the homeless. You should just fix.
Yeah,
Maybe, or even telling other people is not so bad if it encourages other people to come. But you kind of also hide. Also, like you tell 50%. This is another like a Quranic principle, is that you can tell people sometimes, but also hide many of your good things as well, so that it's not all about showing off.
Yeah, yeah. And just one other thing which you might find useful is if you would imagine that you've got, I don't know, a DVD player or some sort of film, and that's your version of how these people should be, as if you're the director and the producer of the world, i.e. playing God. So this is how I think you should all behave. And when people let us down or disappoint us, it has to be that they're not performing the role that we've assigned to them. So if this person you're on about, whether it be a friend or family member or something, they're clearly not doing what you want or what you think they should. But if you, as you said at the end, if you haven't got any expectations, designs, or i.e. playing God as ruler of the kingdom, this is how you should be, then it's difficult to get disappointed in that sense. And also one of the the good things in the New Testament is that we don't hate the person, but we can hate the idea or their 100%. Behavior. And that's what Jesus did when he turned the tables, and it was the whole philosophy of the money, the loan, and doing it on a Sunday, I think, or whatever it was.
Love the sinner, hate the sin.
Yeah. Whenever I need a good Christian comment, I can always rely upon Claire.
Claire helps me a lot as well. Yeah. So let me just go through. I do always appreciate people. No, it wasn't. There's something else. What does this mean? This is what I have to put up with. Bump along. Is she upset?
Trolls.
Oh, okay. It's nothing useful. Well, hello there. I'm again zero. Okay, I was thinking maybe there's something I'm missing, and she was complaining, or he was complaining that we weren't paying them attention. Never mind. Okay. All right. Just a troll then. Okay. All right. Trolls are welcome. Hopefully they will. I don't mind who comes, really, because I always think if I'm saying something useful and somebody accidentally listens, even when trolling me, that's fantastic.
Well, I mean, what do you think trolls are looking for? They're basically addicted to the power of hurting people's feelings. I think that's what they're addicted to.
Yeah, if you can't achieve, and I'm not being hateful, by the way, Dr. Mengel, but we're just discussing in a sort of abstract, distant way for all trolls. Yes, often it's if you're really unhappy, what you do, and you don't feel able to achieve something great, and you feel bad when other people are achieving great things. I'm not saying, I don't know if I'm achieving great things, but I'm just saying, rough, generally speaking, then the easiest thing to feel better about yourself was to pull other people down, so you don't feel the pain of the difference between the heights that somebody else is achieving compared to you not achieving something. So it's the pain of seeing other people achieve things, and I suppose it's the power of trying to exert power to limit
power
their
of
achievement.
Distraction.
Yeah. Okay.
They liken it to when you get out of the swimming baths and you need to push down to push yourself up. So you're pushing down on the side of the swimming baths to push yourself up, and when you're pushing down, that's the analogy for pushing people down. So to make yourself feel better. It doesn't work. I used to do it when I was a youngster. It doesn't work.
Yeah, I suppose we all do it in different ways if we look in a subtle way. But anyway. Okay, so I want to see if I'm been useful in explaining this idea enough to move on to the next form of addiction, which is porn. So failure, and essentially our sense of failure really is not that we're truly failures, because this guy has done so many amazing things. He knows he's done so many good things, but he doesn't value them because they're not valued enough by people. And even if it was valued lots by people, it would never be fulfilling anyway. And I told him yesterday, I think it was yesterday, day before yesterday, when we were talking about it in more time, the only thing that will make you, the only attention or interest or whatever you want to, however you want to word it, is God's attention, God's acceptance. And that might sound very airy-fairy, but I think that's the only thing that really works. And maybe it doesn't sound so airy-fairy anymore, because the West has done this experiment, this materialistic experiment, and it's going so badly that people are being forced to awaken to the reality that there's something else, and that something else has got to be God, and we've been running from it for a long time. Does anybody have to say anything about that?
It's true. There's more and more people going to spirituality and nature and sunrises and sunsets and stuff. And I think it possibly is a temporary reprieve from the insanity of the human condition. I don't think it's a long-term solution, but there's also more people seeking more from the material world to try to get satisfaction from it, sadly. But it is a journey downwards, definitely. Also, in the alcohol isn't as prominent in this country as what it used to be, but other things are. And yeah, so that people are turning to something else, but I don't think there's something else that's got a permanent is a permanent solution.
Okay, yeah. So there's different kinds. You go on.
Yoga and nature walks, and I mean, I'm speaking sea swimming, and you know.
Yeah. So what you're talking about, this is the thing that I was talking about. Western spirituality, the kind of Western spirituality. I was not talking about Orthodox Christianity, for example. No. I was talking about made up spiritual philosophies where they don't have to commit to doing anything. And I talk about modern day Buddhism, because the original Buddhism is very different to Western Buddhism. There's even a website that says, like, it's called Real Buddhist Quotes, because most Buddhist quotes that you'll see are made by Westerners, right? And the real Buddhist quotes are really complicated. That's how you recognize them. What I mean to say is those modern day spirituality is actually an extension of selfish individualism, because you will notice that they will say, just be in the now, don't worry about the past, don't care about other people. It's essentially just take care of number one and take care of your own feelings. And that doesn't work. That's why I call it junk spirituality. But the real spirituality is the teachings of Jesus and Muhammad. Yes, go on.
Yeah, I know some people like that. And this one guy, and I ended up having a discussion with him, and I've talked to Claire about this stuff, about a spiritual narcissist, which is a contradiction, but they are holier than thou, and you know, and I think the message went through. I don't know. I haven't seen him since, so maybe it did. But narcissism in the form of spiritualism is.
What did he do? I'm not quite clear who you mean, actually, or what he did.
Well, he did more yoga than everyone. He was earlier at the sunrises. He'd seen more dolphins. He ate more totally organic food. He had an electric bike or whatever, and he was very proud to promote it, and cold water swimming and Wim Hof and Buddhism, and you know. But
so when I hear people do that, I mean, all those things aren't bad. Obviously, if they're to show off about it, there's a problem. But I also see, I have a lot of empathy for, even though I'm like crapping on modern days Western spirituality, I know from people I talk to, there's a lot of people who are really struggling, who've gone through a lot of problems in their life, but I do agree there's a strong element of narcissism in their faith, a sort of coping mechanism anyway. But yeah, that stops them from realizing the emptiness of their spiritual theories. The spiritual theories are the kind of thing they'll say is everything is God. But there is not much substance or proof behind what they've got to say. But then when I'm saying there's not much substance or proof behind what they say, I think even a lot of what's being taught about Christianity, and even I don't know about Islam, I could say some way about to some extent about Islam to some Muslims who believe in all sorts of things without any evidence. Real spirituality, there's a lot of evidence behind it. There's a lot of evidence that God exists. There's tons of evidence to say all the spiritual teachings, let's say, especially in Islam, I would say, work incredibly well. It's the reason why Muslims have the most marriages, the most long-term relationships, the most children. These are all coming from their religious teaching. There's empirical evidence behind it. It's not some airy-fairy stuff.
But I think I don't ever debate or get into questions about does God exist or not. I just look at the effectiveness of it, and if it works in your life, then great. And if Islam works in your life, then fantastic. There's no point doing it or believing in it if it doesn't actually work in a good way. And so what you're saying there, it makes perfect sense that the evidence, well, that gets back to the New Testament of know them by their fruits.
Yeah.
So the demonstration is on the outside, and that is a reflection of the inside.
Yeah, I think it's good to realize that you're not believing in fairy tales as well, to look at the evidence, does God exist as well? I think it's helpful. And a lot of people think that there is no evidence, and that's a dangerous thing, to believe it's just a belief. And you're just looking at, okay, the results are good, therefore that's good, but it's also a little bit dangerous I would say it's dangerous. Like if you really want to be convinced of a faith, and you want to really benefit from the faith, you can see the outcomes and say that's a good reason to follow it. But it will give you more strength to realize that it really does make sense, even logically, even scientifically. It makes sense. There's overwhelming evidence, but there's so much propaganda by the atheists to give you the impression that actually it's not scientific to believe in God. It's completely opposite.
If you were to say to the atheist, look, in this town in England or town in Saudi Arabia or Iraq or Iran or whatever, like everybody's practicing Muslim, and look, everyone's married. The women are at home most of the time with the kids, and that's your proof. They don't want that. They hate the that type of stuff, that connection. So if you were to demonstrate how your religion, what you just said to me, if you were to say that to the Western atheist, you're almost proving to them that they're right, like in their minds, because they don't want that. They want to be 40 and single and have no children and hate the world or whatever.
I don't think so. I'm going to do a talk about that. I'm going to do a video, the whole live stream, because there are a lot of people really depressed. My cousin just sent me, I think it was an article in The Guardian about the increasing number of men who are ending up incredibly depressed because they thought they would get married, and then for a whole bunch of reasons, and the reasons are something like, and it's also true for women, they follow their career, they think they have time, and they keep putting it off, they keep going out of relationships, and then eventually it's too late, and there's a huge number of people suffering from this.
What the progressive liberals have yearned for and promoted, they're almost getting. And when I know a lot of people, and I lived in London for I think 30 years or something, and there's a lot of single people, men and women, unhappy with it, and what's happening hasn't just happened. It's been created, and the results are coming. Like, for example, the New York mayor, who's a Democrat and a black fellow. When I say that because it is relevant, he was saying yesterday that immigration has to stop in New York. It's killing the city, and I think they're taking 10,000 a week of immigrants. And he says we don't want any more. We don't want, and all stuff like that. But that's exactly what they've created. So it's when it lands. I call it doorstep politics. It's when it lands on your doorstep.
Solving the problem when it's too late, sort of thing.
Yeah, and that's what's happening with marriage and single, and you know.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to try to. Okay, I mean, there's too many very interesting comments. For me, everything's very interesting because there's a lot behind it. Like a lot of people like Wim Hof. I like Wim Hof a little bit. He's known as the Iceman. And he has a very practical way of dealing with depression. I think deep down he's a very depressed person and really struggling. Do you know of Wim Hof? Do you know who he is?
Yeah, I'm a sea swimmer myself. As in, I swim in the North Sea, which is very cold sea throughout winter and everything. So I know all about cold water. And Wim Hof, I knew of him, God, double-digit years ago, and he's obviously gone through the money making.
I think he's. I mean, maybe we should do a video about this, but I'm trying to. I do think it's very much related to addiction. I think he is addicted to his process, and he would get very depressed if he ever stopped. But he is essentially numbing himself from the pain that he's not dealing with, because his problem is spiritual. His wife died.
Yeah, that's right.
Of suicide. And he went through his whole process to somehow deal with it for many years.
But I mean, the thing is, there's hundreds, probably thousands of people like myself who get in cold water every day, and we did it before he did it, and he has somehow become the legend or the god of cold water, and he's making millions of pounds off it. And I just wonder, if God does exist, then there is some sort of comeback for it, because he, as you say, he looks constantly miserable, but he's taken something that's very natural, very organic, and almost say, this is how I do it. It's my way or nothing. So
I think he's more sensational because he's got these party tricks, which is I tried and it works, which is you can stop breathing for 3 minutes or 2 minutes, and it's really easy, and he's got a method for it. And you go, oh, that's really cool. And I don't deny, I used to take cold baths, for example.
Yeah.
There is some level of natural strength that you need, because we become really soft in Western culture. And I feel people are really tough in Jordan, by the way. We lose water, we lose different things. People are just hardy because they're very close to the earth or something. Something to do with that. And the national culture is about being very strong. But anyway, that's another thing.
But he's become a god to these people who you were speaking about 20 minutes ago, who do Western Buddhism. And I did mention Wim Hof in that, which is why Orpheus probably wrote it in. But that's one of the modern day gods is Wim Hof, how to get in the sea correctly, and how to get out, and how to breathe. I mean, it isn't that difficult with respect to Wim.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to whiz to the next point. Porn. Okay, so a lot of people are addicted to porn. I'm not even sure if my comments make a lot of sense, really. Okay, I'll put it like this. Very smart guy, really nice guy, has a lot of introspection, good friend of mine, addicted to porn. And why? And this is what it is, I think. He's an intellectual, and he debates people intellectually, but he doesn't necessarily see if there's any benefit to the outcome. It's just proving you're right and the other person is wrong. That leaves you really empty. That makes you really quite disconnected. It's a very disconnected way of living your life. And therefore, you try to fill that connection. Porn, people, yes, to some extent, we're interested in the pictures, but really we're missing something. We're missing one major thing, which is regular sex. Even though this person is married, people do not set up the proper relationship with the husband or wife for regular sex. They think it should just be magical. People should understand each other. They think the idea of having a schedule is very anti-romantic, which is totally wrong. You should have a schedule. You should understand your responsibilities. They should be black and white. So that's one bit, but also there's a massive disconnect, and he's not working at it. And I'm going to get him to watch this, by the way. And again, he needs to, and then he gets frustrated. He does get frustrated when people don't understand his intellectual ideas, accept them and promote them and all this kind of stuff. And it's quite reasonable most of the time. If you put a huge amount of work, you write a book or all this kind of stuff, and people don't support your work, you get really frustrated. Just another example of people not feeling accepted. But this is always going to happen. People are not always going to like your ideas. They're not going to appreciate all the hard work you put into your ideas. Okay. And then you are going to start hating people. And the only solution, and maybe I don't know if I'm expressing it very well, and it's going to sound really boring, but just help everybody, including people you hate. There should be nobody you hate, is another way I'm trying to say. Anyway, that's just some thoughts I've got about it. Does anybody, like Claire, do you want to say something? And then Jay?
Yeah.
I don't disagree about what you say about porn being used to distract people from their restless thoughts. Because I suppose, if you get a hit of porn, it is kind of like getting a hit of drugs or drink. You forget your problems for a few minutes or whatever.
Are you speaking from experience there, Claire?
Sorry?
We're talking about distractions of sex and drugs and rock and roll.
No, I know.
Jay, go on.
I would ban it personally. I would I would ban porn, gambling, alcohol, a lot. Drugs and everything.
Wow, have you become a secular Quranist?
No, I haven't sunk that low.
But basically, you agree with everything in secular Quranist. It just sounds too foreign for you.
No, it doesn't sound foreign at all. Not living in England.
No, you agree with it.
He's kind of hearing about it.
But you sound like a Muslim.
What does
Jay?
a Muslim sound like?
Exactly what you sound like. All the things you just said, exactly what a Muslim would say.
Yeah, but the National
Banning
Socialists.
porn, banning gambling, banning
It's like
alcohol.
Exactly. Not many people would say that.
In the West.
Okay.
No.
On the West, because banning alcohol. How do you know? Did you watch the Qatar World Cup and how much fuss they made because people are not allowed to drink alcohol?
Oh yeah, it was fascinating,
Right?
and I think the authorities stood up pretty well and didn't back down.
But the point is, what you're saying is exactly what you sound like a Muslim, and everybody else was like, "Oh my God, against our freedom to do anything we want. We should be free to watch porn. We should be free to drink alcohol. We should be free to do stupid." That's the West.
The worst thing for the human condition is freedom. It's
Exactly.
discipline. It's discipline.
Brilliant. I've been saying it so often. Yeah, we think we want freedom, but why do we pick up self-help books to tell us what to do? We don't want to be free. We want guidance.
Well, you want to do the things you shouldn't do and not suffer the consequences, which is basically porn. I mean, I don't know about stuff like porn. It's just so easy. That's the thing. So it's a delusional state of mind. It possibly, without going down this route too far, it's possibly better than the real thing for a lot of men.
Sorry, say that again. I was just laughing
It's
at
possibly
one of the comments. But anyway.
possibly porn
Cheaper,
is better than the real thing.
cheaper and
No,
cleaner.
it's not. But I think
No, I'm not
it can.
saying I'm saying for some men who cannot get women,
Yes, if they cannot get it at all.
or
Yeah, yeah.
they're just not okay.
No,
with it.
yeah, you know what? You touched upon a very important thing that I was thinking of saying, which is like we can ban porn, but we also have to help people get real sex. And we have to I think it's actually becoming popular on social media. I don't know if you noticed it. People are saying bring back arranged marriages because apps don't work.
Well, yeah, but that's part of the progressive freedom and liberal lifestyle. It doesn't work, but how low does the West have to go before it returns to some sort of the current Conservative Party had a leader who had 7 children from 4 different women, promoting family values allegedly. So, like it's hideous. I mean, there are many benefits to Islam within the family unit. That's probably the best one I've seen, and the banning of drugs and gambling and cigarettes and fat sugar, whatever. I would kick it all. Yeah.
So that's really interesting. I mean, before I move on, there's an obvious kind of question. So I feel like you've got some sort of connection with Christianity.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've told Christians, be better Christians. You would do a lot better. Like Christianity teaches the same things as Islam does. Like women are supposed to obey their husbands. And it sounds terrible, but actually it works really well. And there are certain roles. Men are supposed to go out to work. Women are supposed to cook their food or whatever. And it's not a bad thing. It's called specialization of labor. It's logical. It's not. But what's happened is that in the way Christianity has been taught for decades now is that you don't have to do any good work. It's the Holy Spirit. If you just believe, you'll have the Holy Spirit, and by default, you'll be good. And that's been the death of Christianity. Would you agree?
They don't even teach that now in church, for example. I don't think there are any religious lessons in school, but I occasionally dip into church, and I think the average age is about 75 or 80. I want to take a picture and send it to Claire the other week, and it's terrible.
That's a major problem. I was debating, what was that guy called? Michael, whatever, some famous American Christian.
Michael Jones.
Michael Jones. And at the end of his stream, somebody said, I was encouraging people to be better Christians, go back to church and stuff like that, and then get married, go through your community and get married, right? And a person in the live stream said, the problem is everybody's really old. How am I going to get married? And I said, you know what? You're right. You better just become a Muslim, because that's the only place where young people are still going on a regular basis to their community center called the mosque, and through that getting married. What do you think about that, Jay?
Well, when you say become a better Christian, going to church more isn't going to change that. Isn't going to make.
I mean, do the whole thing. I mean, including women wearing a scarf on their head like Mary does.
I think
stuff like that. That helps. All these things make a difference.
Understanding what Jesus was actually saying, and that to me was a change where you actually don't just do the rituals, like the external rituals, and be polite and smile and nice to people and send £3 a month to Africa, that type of stuff. But actually, the internal change about be pure at heart. So what you're talking about probably requires mental effort, where don't hate people. But if you get to a place within yourself where you are pure of heart, then it's organic, it's automatic that you don't hate people. I mean, it's a you don't do it overnight.
There is a process. To doing that. Like there's the saying of the Prophet Muhammad is like a 3-step process by which you stop hating people, you love everybody. And I don't want to go into too much, but this is actually also in Christianity and Judaism.
Yeah.
You're supposed to, whenever you come across somebody, you're supposed to say, peace be upon you. That's in as part of Christianity as well. Some churches do it, and if you make a habit, and when you'd make it a habit, but you don't mean it at first. If you keep doing it, you'll start feeling more connected to people. But that's a whole. There is a process so you can feel more connected with people. I'm going to try to move on because I really appreciate everybody's time, and I don't want poor Claire to get too tired. So this is about you, Claire. Apparently you're a politician. I'm going to whiz through this. Do you want people to accept your intelligence in any way, Claire?
Yes, I want them to recognize my genius.
Sure. Do you think so? Because you're very clear and you don't hide things, I suppose. So that's why you're so upfront about it. So you do want an element of power because that's what it is. Because if you want to accept your intelligence, you want basically for people to accept your superiority in some ways, and to listen to you. Yeah. That's power. Yes. Okay. Do you think that power do you see that power is never going to be fulfilling because you get one or two people saying, yes, Claire, you're right, and then you need 3, then 4, then 5, and it'll never do?
Well, I don't know what kind of power you mean. I mean, I guess the little that I hope for is that I get interviewed in mainstream media and that will just do the job, and the idea will be out and accepted and discussed.
Okay, so yes, so it always starts with something small, but go on, Jay.
Claire, I've known her a while, and I think I'm qualified to answer on this. Claire is
just like Claire can speak on your behalf, you speak on her behalf.
Claire's looking for influence.
Yeah. Okay, and so
her ideas to be taken up. If 1 or 2 politicians talked about her ideas in the House of Commons or I don't know, somewhere like that, Claire would be in heaven.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have to be dictator.
You don't have to be dictator. Well, I'm saying you might want to because you'll get the one politician who'll say, you're right, Claire. I'm gonna go to the House of Parliament and talk about secular Quranism, and you'll be heaven for a minute of it, and then you'll go, oh, that wasn't as fulfilling. I'm just saying that's how it's going to be. You're gonna be that's all right. I'm gonna tweet about it for the whole day. And hopefully loads of people will tell me how great I am that this, I'm just going to say it's just like any addiction. It'll never be fulfilling and you'll want more until you're a dictator of the world. I think that's the inevitable reality of all addictions, of all quests for power. Can you see there's any truth in that? I know you're claiming you'll be happy. Everybody claims they'll be happy with a little bit and then they want more.
No, I think if I were government consultant, I'd be happy. I mean, I wouldn't want to, I want to be displaying myself on the international stage and, shaking hands with Putin and Xi Jinping and, whatever.
Oh, I can see the dreams.
I would back Claire up on that. I would say that she's not searching for personal, identity recognition power. I don't think that. I genuinely don't. I think it is more about her ideas, and that's who she almost is in a way. But I've been with her in social situations, and we did some Jewish spiritual Kabbalah classes together in London, and there's no sign of. She's very, very low maintenance and low ego. So I speak from experience when I say I don't think she wants fame or wants fortune or whatever. I think it's more her ideas to be used and influenced, and I think she'd settle for that.
Thank you, Jay.
And thank you, Jay, for giving a more balanced view of Claire. Because I did say I think I like Claire a lot. She's a really nice person. She come to my, she comes to so many different things. She came to the Muslim conference. I am nitpicking, and I'm nitpicking because I think it's very healthy. Generally, it's not. Generally, it's not healthy to poke at other people. Really, you should be nitpicking at yourself, or myself, and I do that all the time. Is that we inspect, why are we doing anything? So what Claire is doing, I think, is going to be really powerful. She's really onto something. She's realized, she's looked at statistics, she can see Islam is taking over everything, and it's a very powerful ideology that works. She's realized that that's genius. But if you have even a little bit of element of the wrong reason, and even if it's, what I'm saying is, you're 99, I would say we're all like, okay, let's say you're 99% doing it for the right reason. The 1% is worth fixing. It's worth fixing for yourself, because I like you, Claire, as my sister. I'm pointing that out. I'm saying, and then you'll feel you will. And also, secular Quranism will win, because if you fix the 1%, what do I mean by that? Because as soon as you do it completely selflessly, it's so easy to go on forever, and you will win. Because anybody just goes on forever, you will win, because everybody else will give up. Most people give up. And if you're feeling at all frustrated, that's just another reason to give up each time. But if you're not frustrated, you just do it. This is the right thing. You'll keep going. And so this will make secular Quranism even more powerful, because it's nothing to do with you. Do you roughly have, do you see that as useful? What do you think, Claire? Do you think I'm talking rubbish, or?
I mean, I earlier when I was talking about politics being a vocation, I meant that, it's a calling. You're not doing it for the money or the glory. You just can't help yourself but want to do it. It's like, they say nursing is a vocation, teaching is a vocation, soldiering, all these things that people think, oh, I would want to do that for fun or money. So you have to love that particular thing to just do it, or almost compulsively. So I guess I'm saying I am like that. So
Okay.
I mean, I can't even help it. I mean, I'm not getting paid for this. So I guess to that,
which is evidence.
The good thing is that, and this backs up what Claire's saying, is if you're doing stuff selflessly, it doesn't usually require a lot of effort, because the ego isn't engaged. So you're not suffering disappointment, resentment, high excitement, and all of the stuff that comes with it. So if you're coming from a godly center, then there is enough energy and power. And possibly every day, Claire suffers a lot of abuse, and fair lot of it come from me in the past, but she's still doing it. She's still doing it and doesn't get, so she's either coming from a higher place, or there's something wrong with it.
And you know what you just said is going to be my roundup comment, because I appreciate all of your time and being here for over 2 hours. And what you just said was, when you come from a higher place, it becomes easy. And that was the whole point of this live stream. Good. That life is so easy if you come from the right place. Incredibly difficult thing. The most, there's Prophet Muhammad has been known by, I can't remember, on some book, as the most successful person in history by a non-Muslim. And all he did was he just kept on doing what he thought was right. And he achieved such great feats. And what I mean to say is that you can achieve really big things if it's not the intention to do the big thing, but just to play your part. I'm probably not saying as well as you did, Jay, basically. So in short, it's all the same. Yeah, it's just, life is not that hard. You can achieve great things. It depends where you're coming from, why you're doing it. Start with why, as Simon Sinek says, is a great. I'd recommend reading his materials. He talks about both start with why, but also infinite games, which Orfeo Therelusha has been talking about. So, yeah, I think life is easy. You don't need much to survive. That's why life is easy. And you do want to do interesting things. But if you do it with the ego in mind, all those interesting things are ruined. The experience of it is ruined because it's all about you always feel disappointed that you're not getting what you want. But if you do it with the right intention, it's an amazing journey and it's really enjoyable. Yes, go show me your book, and then I'll try to just get you to.
Simon Sinek, Leaders Eat Last.
Let me see that book. What was it called again? Simon Sinek. So you're a big fan of Start With Why. Okay. Leaders Eat Last. Yes. Okay, yeah. So you're a fan as well?
I haven't read it yet, to be honest.
Oh.
I got it about a year ago, and it's in my pile of books to read.
All right. I mean, I haven't read any of his books, but I've listened to his talks and loved his the talk that launched him on TED Talks was about starting with why and stuff like that. But anyway, I'm going to try to stop talking. I want to hear from you. You say last few words, Jay, then Claire, and then I'm ending it. So go for it, Jay. What do you want to say about anything you want to say?
Thank you for having me on. I've enjoyed the experience, and I think it's good that people of different faiths, maybe is the right word, I don't know.
Yeah.
But ultimately, we seem to have logged on to some familiar territory, and even with Claire, who sometimes we don't agree, but no, it's good. It's been really good to chat to you, and you've said a lot of things that have enlightened me, and will hopefully make tomorrow a better day. So thank you.
100%. That's what I want. That's what I really want. And by the way, I'd love you to keep. Jay? You've been, I think, commenting on my videos before. I'd love you to keep joining, and maybe we could just do a focus on just between us two sort of thing on a topic that you're really interested in. And it's really easy to contact me. So you can see on the top right corner it says my name, Khaled Safir. And if you add it at gmail.com, we can get in contact if you want. Yeah. And Claire, thank you. And Claire, you say the last words. I really want to wind this up.
Thank you for your very interesting question about the question of power. I mean, I had a sort of, deep think about, whether I want power, whether I'm addicted to it, whether I deserve power, and so I think you've helped me sort out these questions in my head a little bit better and express them a little bit better. And it was very good that you allowed Jay to join us, making it more interesting. And I have to thank you for your agreeable personality and your open-mindedness in being prepared to talk to all kinds of people and have these more interesting questions and discussions on your channel that are completely missing from the other Muslim channels. So it is a privilege to be your friend.
Thank you so much. I won't add to that. I just loved everything both of you just said. So thank you very much. Peace be upon you. Or have a great week. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Bye.